This guy is a freaking disaster, and his presidency is imploding. And don't let the media convince you of anything else, because it's just not true. This guy is floundering every single day. There is more and more bad news coming out about the economy and other things. Poll numbers, good Lord, his polls. I'm going to get to that in a minute. But it is bad news every single day for this piece of shit, which is why he is so desperate to distract and change the subject. Not just from Epstein, which is his primary concern right now, and we need to keep talking about that, but also the economy and all kinds of other things that people are pissed off about. And he is just desperate to change the subject. That's what his ass-kissing meeting with Putin was all about. I mean, look how quickly they put that together. There was no plan, there was no deal, there was no outline of a deal, there was no framework of an outline of a deal, there was nothing. It was hastily put together for the sole purpose of distracting from Epstein and everything else. Now, I want to talk about some of the other things besides Epstein that Trump is trying desperately to distract from. Primarily, the destruction of the U.S. economy, which he is single-handedly responsible for. There's been a lot of bad news coming out about the economy in the last week that has been overshadowed by Donald Trump's desperate attempt to change the subject. And of course, the media falls right into place. They do exactly what they're supposed to be doing. I'm sure if you turn on any of the Sunday morning shows this morning, they're going to be talking all about his meeting with Putin, treating it as a serious issue. It wasn't a serious issue, except for the fact that he is a laughing stock around the world, an embarrassment to this country. But if they're going to sit there and talk about a deal or what the framework of a future, it's all bullshit. Here are just a few of the things that Donald Trump doesn't want you to know about. Here's an article. U.S. deficit grows to $291 billion in July, despite tariff revenue surge. The U.S. government's budget deficit grew nearly 20% in July to $291 billion, despite a nearly $21 billion jump in customs duty collections from President Donald Trump's tariffs, with outlays growing faster than receipts, this according to Treasury Department data. The deficit for July was up 19%, or $47 billion from July 2024. 19% increase in the July budget deficit over last year when Joe Biden was president. And remember that Joe Biden was a socialist and a communist, and he was going to destroy the country with all his reckless deficit spending. And now Donald Trump is in office, and he is growing the deficit. He is expanding the deficit, a 19% jump in July over July of last year. You know, they said the exact same thing last time Trump was president. I remember when Barack Obama was president, Republicans said that Barack Obama's deficit spending was going to destroy the country. Donald Trump comes into office and he doubles Barack Obama's deficit spending. Barack Obama added about $8 trillion to the national debt in 8 years. Donald Trump added just about the same amount of debt in just 4 years, literally doubling Barack Obama's deficit spending. And Republicans said not a fucking word. Same thing when we went from Biden to Trump. Biden's deficits were going to destroy the country. Trump increases the deficit spending. Not a word. Okay, so we've got that. So that's the deficit. That's the year-over-year accumulation of debt. What about the national debt? Where does that stand? Well, U.S. national debt reaches $37 trillion. The U.S. government's gross national debt has surpassed $37 trillion, a record number that highlights the accelerating debt on America's balance sheet and increased cost pressures on taxpayers. By the way, this is from the AP. And now more government spending has been approved after Trump signed into law Republicans' tax cut and spending legislation earlier this year. This was that big, beautiful piece of shit bill. The law set to add $4.1 trillion to the national debt over the next decade. And for you Trump cultists out there, a decade is 10 years. So when they say over the next decade, they mean over the next 10 years. And so if you take the $4.1 trillion and divide it by 10, that's adding $410 billion more to the debt each year, thanks to Donald Trump's big, beautiful piece of shit bill, which, by the way, Trump humpers, is also going to take away your health insurance, because a lot of you are on Medicaid, and also going to take away your food assistance, because Trump and Republicans slashed the SNAP program. So, you know, when you get food stamps and stuff, that's what SNAP is. And so Trump has taken that away from you too. But, you know, you're too stupid to realize that, and I'm sure you'll just blame Biden or something, because that's what you do, right? Okay, so we got that. Here's another article. Trump's pick for BLS commissioner, that's the Bureau of Labor Statistics, floated suspending the monthly jobs report before apparently backing off. This is the guy who is Trump's pick to replace the former commissioner of the Bureau of Labor Statistics. You'll recall that he fired that woman because he didn't like the jobs report, because it was, of course, bad, because Donald Trump is destroying the economy. And like all dictators, he wants to control the information. And he doesn't want it to be reported, you know, any bad or accurate information to be reported about what he's doing to the economy. So he just fired her. And instead, he's putting in this E.J. Antoni. Let me read a little of this. E.J. Antoni, Trump's pick to lead the Bureau of Labor Statistics, is no longer considering suspending the monthly jobs report. What he said was, originally he said, we're just going to get rid of the monthly jobs report because, oh, you can't believe that, it's not accurate. Of course, he got some pushback, and he needs Senate confirmation. See, so he got a lot of pushback for that. And so he's walked it back. He said, okay, well, we'll continue to put out monthly jobs reports. And this is what Stephen Moore, a Heritage Foundation economist and frequent contributor to Fox News, so take that let that tell you how much you can trust this jackass. Anyway, he says Antoni will continue to publish monthly jobs reports if confirmed. So this is all about getting confirmation. So he's saying that now, but once confirmed, he's probably just going to stop releasing monthly jobs report data anyway, because that's what they do. They tell the Senate whatever they want to hear in order to get confirmed, and then they just do the opposite anyway. And there's no consequence. These people aren't going to be impeached and removed from office. So I doubt we're going to see any jobs reports. And if we do, unless they're good, I mean, they'll report good job numbers, but we're not going to get any good numbers anytime soon. So more likely what's going to happen is they'll just cook the books, which is what we're going to see pretty much with all the numbers coming out of the Bureau of Labor Statistics from now on. Okay. Oh, and by the way, this Antoni guy, he was a January 6th insurrectionist. Yeah, he is in the mob. There's pictures of him with the mob. So that is who is going to be in charge of the economic data being produced by the federal government. So yeah, can't believe anything that comes out now. That should really help businesses. Anyway, here's some more good news for the Trump economy. Wholesale prices rose far more than expected in July, providing a potential sign that inflation is still a threat to the U.S. economy. Gee, you think? The Producer Price Index, which measures final demand goods and services prices, jumped 0.9% on the month, compared with the Dow Jones estimate for a 0.2% gain. It was the biggest monthly increase since June of 2022. That's when Biden was president, and they were telling us that numbers like that means that this was the worst economy in the history of the country. Remember? Is that what Republicans are saying now? No, of course not. Here's some more good news for the Trump economy. Electricity prices are soaring across the country, which I'm sure most of you are well aware of. I certainly am feeling it where I live. And it is the price of electricity is rising much, much faster than inflation, generally speaking, which is also on the rise. So yeah, looking real good, Trump humpers. How about this? Beef prices soar to all-time high. And you know who's responsible for that? Donald Trump. Now look, I don't want to hear any excuses. I don't want to hear any explanations from these Trump humpers telling us about how it's not really his fault. Trump doesn't control the price of beef or the price of electricity or the price of vegetables, which is also bad, by the way. Here's an article about vegetables. Wholesale prices for vegetables up 40%. Also Donald Trump's fault. So I don't want to hear from these Trump humpers that it's not Trump's fault, that he doesn't control the economy. He doesn't control the price of electricity or the price of groceries in the grocery store. Because remember, as soon as Donald Trump was elected in November, I made a video and I said, there are new rules from now on. We need to implement new rules. And really what the new rule is to just apply the same standard to Donald Trump that he and Republicans applied to Joe Biden, which is to say that everything that goes wrong in this country, and really not just this country, but anywhere in the world, is Donald Trump's fault. That includes the price of vegetables, the price of beef, the price of electricity, the price of housing, all of it. It's all Donald Trump's fault, because when Joe Biden was president, Donald Trump and Republicans blamed literally everything on Joe Biden. Everything was his fault. And it was an effective line of attack for a couple of reasons. One, the American people, by and large, are blithering idiots. I mean, they don't know how anything works. So if you just keep telling them over and over again that everything is Joe Biden's fault, and they see that things are going wrong in this country, or they perceive them to be going wrong, yeah, they're going to be susceptible to that stupid argument, and they'll believe it. On top of that, there was no effective pushback or messaging of any kind coming out of the White House. The White House, apparently, their position seemed to be that, well, we're gonna put our head down and do a good job, and the American people are smart, and they'll figure it out. They'll see what we're doing. They're not going to believe Donald Trump's lies. Yeah, how did that strategy work out? Not too fucking good. Let me try this again. Any political strategy which presupposes or assumes, that's the better word, any political strategy which assumes the intelligence of the American people is a stupid strategy, because the American people are not smart. Look around. They voted for this shit, okay? This is a stupid group of people, for the most part. So anyway, they treated the American people as if they were smart and well-informed, and they understood economics, and they wouldn't believe Trump's lies, and we don't have to say anything. The American people would figure it out. No. If your strategy is to let the American people figure it out, so you say nothing and let the other side just say whatever the hell they want, that's a recipe for disaster. And that's largely what happened in the 4 years leading up to Donald Trump's reelection. Anyway, let me get back on to my point here. The point is, we need to turn the tables on Donald Trump and apply the same standard to him that he applied to Joe Biden. Everything that goes wrong, not just in this country, but anywhere in the world, is Donald Trump's fault. Remember? I mean, Donald Trump still blames the Ukraine war. You know, he blames Russia attacking Ukraine on Joe Biden, right? It was Joe Biden's fault that Russia invaded Ukraine. I mean, everything that went wrong anywhere in the world, Trump blamed on Biden. So the new rule is we blame his fat orange ass for everything, including beef prices, vegetables, electricity, and every damn thing else. Okay, so we got the beef, we got the vegetables, and there's so much more. But let me wrap it up with this. What effect do you think this is all having on Donald Trump's approval rating? Well, if you think that it's probably not doing him any favors, yeah, that's a pretty big understatement. Donald Trump is dying politically. He is getting his ass kicked in the polls. Here's the latest Pew Research poll. His approval rating, 38%. 38. We're only 6 months into his administration. 38%. He is far and away the most unpopular president at this point in his presidency of anyone in American history, at least insofar as we have polling data on it. 38 freaking percent. And I remember when Joe Biden's numbers got really, really bad towards the end of his term, the media was constantly telling us how unpopular Joe Biden is or was. I don't see the same sort of press coverage now. Do you? Do you hear constant breathless reporting of every bad new approval poll for Donald Trump? No, you have to really search to find it. Joe Biden, they led the friggin' news with that almost every day. But 38% approve, only 38% approve. Disapprove, 60 freaking percent. When do you get 60% of the American people to agree on anything? And here, 60% of the American people agree that Donald Trump sucks. So that's a pretty good consensus, 60% in this country. And he's underwater with every single demographic group. Well, just about. Whites, he's down. He's underwater 5% among whites. He's underwater 68 points with blacks. Hispanics, minus 43 points. Asians, minus 35 points. By the way, let me make a point about the Hispanics. You know, I told you a couple days ago that Trump's desperate attempt to redistrict Texas because they think they're going to be able to squeeze out like 5 more Republican seats out of there, that might blow up in his face because they are making assumptions about the Texas electorate based off of the 2024 election. Donald Trump and Republicans don't have nearly the approval rating now that they did in 2024. And, you know, it was much reported about Trump's big gains among Hispanics specifically. His support among Hispanics has cratered over the last 6 months. And guess, you know, who there are a lot of in Texas? Hispanics. And if Trump and Republicans think they're going to squeeze out 5 more seats out of Texas based on the Hispanic vote as it turned out in 2024, they may end up handing Democrats additional seats in Texas is what they might end up doing. Because whatever the percentage of Hispanics voted for Donald Trump in Texas in 2024, I guarantee you it's going to be a hell of a lot lower than that in 2026. But you go ahead, Republicans. I don't think it's going to work out for you the way you think it's going to work out. Asians, he's underwater 35 points. Young people, 18 to 29, he's down 33 points. 30 to 49, he's down 31 points. Ages 50 to 64, he's down 9 points. And ages 65 and up, down 9 points. Men, he's underwater 13 points. Women, he's underwater 28 points. High school or less, minus 15. College grads, minus 31. And post-grads, minus 33. Democrats, among Democrats or lean Democratic, Trump is underwater 87 points. And here is the only demographic group in this entire poll, as has been reported here, where Donald Trump is in positive territory. Among Republicans or lean Republican, he's up 48%. But overall, these are abysmal poll numbers for Donald Trump. And here's the thing. This is something that Trump is not going to be able to get away from. The American people, largely, not all of them, are both stupid and ignorant, which up till now has always tended to work in Donald Trump's favor. But their ignorance, they're also oblivious. I mean, they're ignorant to the point of obliviousness, because it's a purposeful ignorance. They don't concern themselves with politics. You know, a lot of people are like, how can the American people, how can he even have a 38% approval rating? It's because most Americans don't pay any fucking attention to politics. You and I do, and we look around, and how can they look around and see what's going on and still approve of him? Well, of course, you got the Trump cult contingent, which are always going to approve of him. But you also have people who are just so damn oblivious, they have no idea. But what they do know about is how much things cost. They do know if they can't afford groceries, or can't go out to eat, or can't buy a new car, or whatever it is. They do know that. And that's one of the things that these, people who largely don't care about politics, but who vote in presidential elections, they didn't really even care about Trump, or they're not opposed to Trump, they don't love Trump, but they voted for Trump because they believed the economy was terrible, largely because of the price of things, especially at the grocery store. Remember, the price of eggs was a big deal. So they voted for Trump. They fell for the bullshit that the economy was great under Trump the first time, and now it's terrible, and that, he might be a perv and all this other stuff, and a criminal, even if they know about the criminal charges against him. And believe me, I'm telling you, do not underestimate the ignorance of the American people. A lot of them didn't know squat about his criminal charges. Seriously. Anyway, but they voted the way Americans tend to vote in presidential elections. They vote on the economy. And because inflation was up, it doesn't matter that the American economy was better than any economy in the world at the time. We came through COVID better than any other country, and pretty much all the macro numbers were headed in the right direction. They don't know anything about that. They don't understand any of that shit. They understand grocery prices and the prices of other things they pay for. And while inflation had come down, the prices were still high. And so they blamed Biden and they voted for Trump. Well, that dynamic has not changed. That political dynamic where they blame the president for the price of groceries. That dynamic hasn't changed. And grocery prices are only going to get worse. And not just grocery prices, but the prices of pretty much friggin' everything. It's back to school time. People are shopping at Walmart and Target and all these places, buying school clothes, most of which have tariffs applied to them because, most clothes are not made in this country. So they're going to be tariffed heavily. Prices are going to be up over last year. People see this and they're going to blame Trump. And Trump can try to blame Biden all he wants, but it's just not going to work. It's just not. Maybe for a period of time, but I think 6 months in, look, the cult's always going to blame Biden. They'll go along with Trump no matter what he says. But everyone else, Trump owns this now. Trump owns it. And he could try to blame whoever the hell he wants. He can try to blame Biden, Kamala Harris, Democrats, Jerome Powell, whoever. It's not going to work. Because that's not how the American people operate. They blame the guy in the White House. And that worked to Donald Trump's benefit because he was, to get reelected, because he was effectively able to message that everything was Joe Biden's fault. But it's not going to work for him going forward. And if we're going to destroy this Trump presidency, either by effectively rendering it impotent to a large degree, now he'll still have authoritarian powers that come with being president, but he will have lost all his ability to get anything he wants through the Congress if we win in the midterms. And what is important to me is impeaching and removing this piece of shit from office, if that is at all possible, and I believe it is. Key to that is driving down his poll numbers even more. And man, 38% in the first 6 months, guys, we're heading in the right direction. I know it doesn't feel like it at times. This man is flailing. This man is desperate. This man, his presidency is crashing down all around him in many ways. Let's focus on those things. Focus on the things that the American people can relate to, that they will blame Donald Trump for. And keep the pressure up on Epstein. Because I'm telling you, whatever the hell he did with Epstein and whatever the hell is in those files, it's bad. Which is why he is so desperate to cover it up. So keep up the pressure. Keep up, chin up. Keep your spirits up. Don't let them break your spirit, because that's what he needs. He needs you to give up. All dictators and authoritarians need you to give up. That's how they get and maintain power, by disheartening the opposition. Don't let him dishearten you. Make the things that he is doing motivate you to oppose this even more. So anyway, that's it. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.